Hi, this is Mark from Wiki Design. In this After Effects tutorial, I'm going to show you how I was able to animate this 3D dragon into this drone footage right here. I'm going to be covering three main topics in this tutorial, and that is how to do the 3D tracking. I'm going to show you how I was able to download this 3D animated dragon. And then I'll be covering the rotoscoping and how I was able to trace out the castle right here and have it where the dragon is flying behind the castle. So let's just jump right into the tutorial. Okay, so the first step is we need to actually get some video, and then I'm going to show you where you can download cool 3D models that already animated like that dragon I showed you. So there's tons of different stock image websites out there for videos and all of that. So this one's just called Pexels. And what you could do is just go to videos, and then I just typed in the word like castle. And I wanted to get like a nice drone footage of a castle that would be easy to like rotoscope out just for this tutorial. So I kind of scroll down here, and then this is the one I came up with. So what you need to do is just go ahead and just click the free download button right here, and then it's going to download it as like the full HD. So in this case, let's just do 1920 by 1080. And as you can see, it's a short clip. It's only like 9 seconds. And so I wanted to make it where the dragon, it would be easy to kind of rotoscope out. So that's why I chose this one. So go ahead and download that. And then now I'm going to show you where you can download 3D models like that dragon. And the website I recommend is Sketchfab. So of course, there's a lot of other platforms where you can download these things, but this is like a good resource because they have a lot of good free ones. So what you can do is go underneath Explore. And in this case, you can just do like animals and pets. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of them right here. You can sort by the date all time. This is like the most popular. But if we just go ahead and type in something like dragon, we're going to be able to just get dragons, of course. And then what you're going to want to do is right here where it says downloadable, you want to make sure you click that. And then this is really important. You want to make sure it says animated. There's a toggle box right here. And so what these artists have done is they've given you like animations built into the model that you're going to download and bring it into After Effects. So you're not going to have to manually like do this stuff in a 3D program. This is like the quick and easy way to kind of pull off something like this. And so you just kind of scrub through and see which one is going to be good. I believe the one I used right here is called, it was down here, called Animated Dragon. Yep, Animated Dragon 3 Motions. So what's cool about this platform is you could see how the animations are going to look before you actually download it. So you can zoom out right here with the mouse. So what's nice is right here, they give you the toggle where you can switch between the different animations. So this is the static pose. And then right down here, you can do, if you stop that, you can go to flying. So you can see that there's different animations. So some of them might have a whole bunch of animations. So you can toggle and see how long the animation is. So you can see this animation, I believe, is like 13 seconds long. And then the stock video that we just downloaded is like 9 seconds. So you're going to want to make sure that you get something that's animated longer than the video footage. If not, then you're going to have to probably import this model into a 3D platform like Blender. You're going to have to do some pretty complicated stuff to make it, longer. Or you might be able to do some stuff in After Effects to kind of slow it down and speed it up. But in this tutorial, let's just keep it nice and simple where the animation for this is longer than the video footage. So what you're going to want to do is scroll down here and where it says download 3D model. This is really important. You're going to want to make sure that you can download a GLB file. So if you can try to get the original format, you can see they're bigger than the converted ones. So these down here are going to be lower poly. So that means they're going to be less triangles and all of that type of stuff. So since this is just video, you want to get the largest possible. And as long as your computer can handle it, something like 48 megs is not going to be anything. So just go ahead and download that. So now we can actually jump into After Effects and get started on how to import the 3D model and overlay it onto the video. And here we are inside of After Effects. So when you start a new project, you should be prompted with these two buttons right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say new composition from footage, and then I'm going to choose that drone footage we just downloaded. Okay, so now that that's imported, you can go ahead and see that it automatically is going to add a composition and add it to the timeline down here. So if we go into the composition settings, you can see it's 1920 by 1080. So this will automatically pull in. If you click that button, it will automatically scale down everything correctly. So I just like to double check, make sure everything is good right here. So the first thing is we need to actually, let's go ahead and do the 3D tracking. So it's going to create a camera and then kind of move the camera along with the video correctly and kind of map out a few things. So what you're going to want to do is find your effects and presets. And if you don't have that, it's going to be right down here. And just type in the word tracking or just track, and you can see there's this new one right here called 3D camera tracking. So just double click on that, and it's going to actually go ahead and start to analyze the whole video. So depending on how long it's going to be, it might take a few minutes or it might only take like 30 seconds, but this should probably just take a little bit of time. And you can see up here, it will tell you when it's done, where my mouse is. It will tell you when all the frames, here we go. So frames 239 altogether. And I'll just come back once this is done and show you the next step. All right, cool. So now you can see that it's completed right here. And when you're done, it should look like this. And you should see a bunch of different dots on the screen. And then when you mouse over, you're gonna have this weird like red target. So that means everything is working correctly. So what this is these are just different points that the algorithm was able to kind of determine what's still. So for example, if I go in here and I start to zoom in, you can see that it knows that like the top of the tower, like if I start to scrub right here, these points are gonna move and kind of lock on. So you can see that sometimes they pop in and out, but a lot of them, like this one right here, is kind of like locked into frame. And you can see once it gets like right here, it kind of locks in. So what you're gonna wanna do is, in this example, if I zoom back out, you wanna find something that represents like a ground plane, because now what we need to do is kind of tell the camera where the ground is, and then what we can do is lock in that 3D dragon to the ground, kind of raise it up. I like to work at like the ground level. The only ground level I could really find was down here and then up here near the castle. So if you zoom in just on PC, you could do Control and plus, you can zoom in, and then you can use the space bar to kind of maneuver around. So what I like to do is go to something right here where the ground is kind of more, you know, front and center. And what I'm going to do is just choose one of these triangles. So you could just click right here. And what it's going to do is choose these 3 points right here. And then what you could do is right click. And after some trial and error, this option might not always show up. So I don't know 100% why, but I think it might determine if the video footage isn't going to be compatible for shadow catcher, camera, and light. It might not show up. And then there's one other option that I'll show you in a minute, but you're going to want to make sure you right click on a good point wherever there's like a ground and set right here where it says set ground plane and origin. So go ahead and click that. And then what I'm going to do is right click and click this one here, create shadow catcher, camera, and light. So that's going to do exactly what it says. It's going to create, if you look down here, we have a light, the shadow catcher, and we have the 3D tracking camera. So if you don't see that option, like I said, it might be the video footage itself. And another place where you might want to check is you want to make sure if you go underneath your composition right here and you click on composition settings, you can also access that right here where it says 3D render. So you might need to switch it to advanced instead of classic. So I believe that if you do that and you have the right video footage, that should show up. Okay, so now let's go ahead and walk through what all of this stuff means right here. So what I like to do is the very first thing is where you see the shadow catcher. What I like to do is expand this. And if you go underneath material options, I like right now it says accept shadows only. We're going to enable that back later once we import everything. But what I like to do is just click this on. And then I like to scrub through the video and just make sure it doesn't like glitch out. Because sometimes when you do these 3D tracking cameras, weird things can happen. It can like flip planes or whatever like that. So if we start to tie things to this, like the 3D model of the dragon, it might start to glitch out. I had a situation where it like disappeared for a few frames. So if that happens, you need to go ahead and actually probably remove a few frames from that tracking. So what I had to do in that case was underneath where the 3D tracking is right here, you can see these are all like keyframes right here. So if you have any keyframes where like I said, it kind of glitches out real quick, you can just go ahead and remove a frame or two. It's not going to hurt anything. So that's step one, is to go ahead and just make sure everything looks smooth so that plane stays locked in. So let me actually put this back out and let me just scrub the timeline, make sure everything looks good. So that's staying nice and locked into that position right there. All right, so now let's get to the fun part and import that dragon. So you're just going to go up into File, and then I'm going to import that dragon, that GLB file, right into the timeline. And as you can see right here, it's going to pull in the dragon.glb file. So just go ahead and click and drag that into the time frame. And I like to put it right above the shadow. That might be a good place. And then you can click this button when it comes up, make comp size. So that's going to automatically position it depending on how big the comp size is. It doesn't always work great, but you can go ahead and click that and then see what happens. So as you can see right here, in this perspective, I can't really see where the dragon is. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see that it's way down here, but pretty small. So now let's go ahead and actually position this dragon right in the middle of here. So what you could do is on the dragon layer, hold down the shift key, and you see this little parent icon right here. What you can do is click and drag that to any one of these. So let's go ahead and do it to the shadow catcher. And you can see when you do that, it's going to automatically bring it here in the middle. And now it's way too big. So what we can do now is actually go in here underneath the dragon and then just start to scale this down proportionally so it doesn't get too big on the X or the Y. Just do it at a percentage, so like 8% is good. And then we need to actually rotate this on the X coordinates. So let's go ahead right here and I can just type in something like 90. So now if I zoom in, you can see the dragon is now stuck to that plane and he's rotated. So this is in the idle state, so he's not flying yet. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But what I've definitely learned when you do this type of stuff, go ahead, zoom back out, and just start to scrub everything. Make sure that he stays in the same spot where the shadow catcher is. You're going to want to make sure that he's stuck to that plane. So everything looks good. There's no like weird glitches. So now what's cool about when you downloaded that GLB file, that automatically has that animation built in. So you're not going to have to go to a 3D program like Animate it and bring in anything like that. If you look right underneath, when you have the dragon layer selected underneath the animation options, you're going to see this new drop down right here. So there's actually, you could do idle, he's running, or flying. So in this case, we want to choose the flying animation. And when you do that, it's automatically going to put him up here, which is pretty cool. So if for some reason you need to reposition him, you can always just go ahead and just do that right here. And before you do that, you're going to want to make sure that it's no longer linked. So now that we have him locked into that coordinates with the shadow catcher right here, we can unlink them. So it's not going to remove anything, but right here where it says parent and link, you're going to click none. Because if I start to make changes to the dragon, it's going to move that plane. We don't want that. So if you need to like reposition the dragon now on the Y coordinate, you can see it's going up and down right here. So you can see that I want to bring him down or up depending on where you want him, and then we can rotate him in a minute. But what I like to do is actually, let's bring him closer to the ground right here, and let's zoom in again. And I'm going to make sure that the shadows are working. So this is probably going to be the part that is the most unrealistic, is being able to have the shadows, cast correctly all over these trees. That's actually a lot of like more custom work. I'm not going to be covering that in this tutorial, but we can go ahead and just do one big shadow plane, and maybe once in a while a little shadow will come up. But yeah, that definitely is going to be the part that would require the most kind of manual work. But I'm just going to show you that this is how shadows are going to work inside of After Effects when you bring in a 3D model. So in order to change the shadows, what we're going to do is change how the light's going to be displayed. So as you can see right here, when I select the light layer, this is just kind of like this point light that it adds automatically, and you can move it around. You can see the light starts to change. You can bring it up, something along those lines. But let's go ahead and actually do a couple different things. And the first thing is double click on the light layer, and we're going to change this to environment. And then you're going to make sure that this button right here is cast shadows is on. So you can see that when you do that, you're going to see the shadows right here. And then what you can do now is click right here where it says advanced 3D, whatever you have selected right here, and you're going to go to the render options. And if you want to see, you can change this right here for the smoothness of the shadows. You can make it real smooth right here. You can start to double the resolution. This is where you're going to go ahead and change out how these shadows are going to look. But let's just go ahead with like 16 and just do that. And then if you're not seeing shadows, there's a few different areas where you might need to toggle on. So underneath the light, again, you're going to make sure that cast shadows is on. The 3D layer itself has cast shadows. You want to make sure that's on. And then this is going to be the most important one, is the shadow catcher right here where it says accept shadows. You're going to make sure that's on. So we're going to be enabling this in a minute, where it gets rid of that shadow catcher, and you can see it kind of cast on the video itself. But if you have this to off, it's not going to cast any shadows. So there's kind of like 3 or 4 different locations where you need to make sure your shadows are on. So if you're happy with how this environment light works, you can actually go ahead underneath the intensity and kind of lower it to kind of match the scene a little bit better. But what we can do is take it a little bit further and use an HDRI map. And what that is it's a lot more detailed than this environment light kind of built in. And you're going to be able to tie it to an environment that's a little more closely related to this. So if I zoom back out into here, you can see that this is got a lot of greens in it. It's kind of a cloudy, overcast day. So we can pull in something that might match a little bit better to than just the standard environment light. So there's a really good resource online called Polyhaven right here. And this is where you can go ahead, underneath assets, you can go click on HDRIs. And then this is a great resource because these maps are really powerful. You're going to be able to download any of these type of outdoor scenes, indoor scenes. But if I go and click on outdoor right here, and then you're going to want to do it something like overcast. So kind of go through and look for one that represents something that's pretty close to the environment that we have. So like I said, it was a lot of greens, very cloudy day. So I went and I downloaded this one right here. It seems pretty good. So you can go ahead and click on that. And what that's going to do is kind of pull in extra information. So if you click right here, this is what it's going to look like. So when you have your dragon on here, this is how the shadows would be cast. So very much kind of like spread out shadows. They're not like harsh shadows or anything. So you can go up here and where it says 4K EXR, you can go ahead and just click and download this. So you can see it's like 134 megabytes. So go ahead and download that, and then I'm going to import it into After Effects. So now that you have that, so let's go ahead and import that and just drag it into the timeline down here. And we don't need to actually see it, so we can go ahead and unclick it so where the eyeball is so we can hide it. Then underneath light, what we need to do is expand this. And then right here underneath light options and source, go ahead and choose that right here. So again, that's not going to show up unless you have it inside the timeline right here. And so now you can see that that might actually bring in less shadows now, which is fine. And then if it actually looks good right out of the gate, you can just kind of go with that. But if you need to actually go ahead and try to match it up a little bit better, this is where you can change the X rotation and the Y rotation of that light source. So whatever's going to kind of match. And if I go here, I can actually, let me rotate the dragon right now. This might not be the final rotation, but let's go ahead and rotate him on the Y and see if he's too dark or too bright. But let's go ahead, keep him there for now and go back into the light and then start to see where some of the hot spots would be. So right around here, you can see there's the light is kind of bright right here on this side of the castle. So something along those lines might be okay. And then you can change the X as well, or the Y. So just kind of figure out what looks good. And like I said, the shadows are going to be very minor. So this isn't going to be showing up that much. But what we can do is while you have that selected right now, the shadow catcher, go ahead and just scale that up a whole bunch. Because in this case, you want to maybe have it where the shadows might appear over the trees or over here if it looks like it would actually be casting. So what you can do is underneath transform on that, just start to scale this up really big. It doesn't really matter. You can scale this up real big because this is just going to be a shadow plane. And so when he's flying around, anything that touches here is automatically going to cast a little bit of a shadow. So let's make it even a little bit bigger. So something like that. And then now this is where we can go ahead underneath the material options where it says accept shadows, make sure that that's on only. So now that plane is completely gone. And if I start to scrub, you can see he's already starting to fly. So now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and position him to start up here in like the top right corner. Let me get this a little bit bigger. We can maybe have him start right here and just kind of fly behind the castle and then do like a little rotation so he kind of comes toward the camera. Now you may want to be aware of, I just want to trace out the castle for the rotoscoping, but if you want to have the wingspan or anything like that go behind these trees, you might have to like rotoscope that. But I'm just going to show you, I'm going to rotoscope the castle, but let's go ahead and position him right now. And if I click on the dragon, we need to position him a lot further up. So on the Y right here, let's go ahead. Sometimes it's easier just to click and drag him up like this rather than doing the keyframes down here. And then let's go ahead and change him on the X way over here. So let's have him fly in. Let's make him go up a little bit more. So he kind of starts from over here. Now what we can do is actually, let's just do a keyframe at the beginning, and then let's go to the very end here. And let's just move him all the way over here. So if I go ahead and start to change this to be a different value, so he's a lot closer. What is that, 4661? So something like maybe 0. Let's see where he comes in. So right there, he still needs to come in. So we're going to be going into the negative numbers right here. We'll do like negative 2000. That's still not enough. So let's bring him like negative 20,000. So that might be a little too far. So you kind of have to figure out which number is actually going to be the sweet number. So maybe more like 8,000. Okay, so that's pretty good. So something along like 8,000. So let's animate him. So when you did those 2 keyframes, it's automatically going to have him fly right here. And let's just make sure if I zoom in right here, he's got a big wing span right there. He's going to be, let's put him down a little bit more and scale him down. So let's actually scale him down a little bit more. Something along these lines. So when he flaps his wings, it's not so big because he's probably pretty close to the camera still. So you could always change the Z right here as well. So you can see right here when I do that, he's going to start to go behind. So he's going to start here. Let me show you right here. So let's have him start right here, flying in, and then that Z and then that Z depth right here, I made it where he's starting to come a little bit more toward the camera. But let's go ahead and position the last frame to have him even closer to the camera. So if we do something along these lines right here, so you can see it's kind of like bending behind the castle. So once he gets here, he starts to come toward the camera a little bit. So let's just animate real quick, just make sure everything looks good. We're gonna rotoscope next, and then he's going to come toward the camera. And then now let's actually rotate him. So right around this state, let's have him start to turn toward the camera even more. And so what we're going to be doing is on the Y rotation, we're going to set a keyframe in the beginning. And then once he gets around here, let's actually rotate him a lot more toward the camera. So like something like that. So once he gets here, then he's rotated. So he comes here and he's kind of slowly rotating toward the camera. And there you go. So now that looks pretty good. So now he's flying in, rotating, and like I said, he's locked down into the bottom plane here. So that's why we need to do all that 3D tracking in the beginning. So it looks like it actually is in the environment. So what I recommend is definitely go ahead and save your scene and make sure you save often. Okay, so now we can get to the rotoscoping part of the tutorial. So what I like to do is scrub to the part where the rotoscoping is going to happen. So right around here, right around the 3-second mark, and it needs to be rotoscoped at least until the 7 or 8 second mark right here. So I'm getting those times right here. So in between like 3 and 7, we're going to want to make sure that the castle is cut out so he flies right behind it. So what I recommend is go ahead and duplicate that video layer. So what I like to do is click and drag in a new one. And let's just turn off the bottom one. So this first one right here is going to be the cutout of the castle. And then he's going to be flying behind it. So I like to have the 2 different layers right there. In order to do the rotoscoping, you need to click on this tool right here. This is called the Roto Brush tool. We're not going to be using this one called Refine Edge tool. We're going to be using this one right here. And when you do that, nothing's going to happen. What you need to do is to actually double click on that video. And now you're going to have this weird little brush right here. So this is what's going to be the outline of your rotoscoping. So we need to just kind of animate around the 3-second mark all the way up until maybe like 6 or 7 seconds, because that's the only time where the dragon's flying behind. So what I recommend is figure out what you want traced out. So in this case, let's just kind of trace out this part of the castle. Remove my mouse and just kind of go up and make sure he's flying behind here. So we don't need to trace out any of these trees really, just kind of this part of the castle. So you can just use your mouse once you're in here and just start to do Control+, or you can just scroll with your mouse, whatever is easier. Now, if you need to change the size of the brush tool right here. You can hold down Control on a PC, and then left click on your mouse and then start to drag up and down. So you can see right here, this is how big the selection is going to be. So depending on your use case, something along those might be good. So what we're going to be doing is actually, you just kind of get close to the edge like this, and you just start to trace part of the castle out. Now, if I let go of the mouse, watch what happens. It's automatically going to start to cut out. So anything within these lines is what's going to be like cut out. So what we can do is just keep adding to it right here. So you can see when I do that, it automatically add all this stuff in here. Now, in this case, we want to actually subtract all of that. So you're going to hold down Alt on a PC and just subtract all of this. So it's telling basically the algorithm, don't take that part of the trees. And then right down here, this is another area where we don't want, so you can see when you do that, you need to kind of just go slowly. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's a lot quicker than if you do it yourself manually, because this is going to use like an algorithm and really get it refined pretty well. So now if I want to have this part right here, what I can do, like I said, is hold down Control, click, and then make it a little bit smaller. And then just kind of go like this. And it should grab that. You can see it pulled in a little bit more here. So depending on how detailed your video is, you may have issues like this. There you go. So now that's cut out right here. This whole area right here, we're going to want to cut that out. And then you're going to want to add right here like this. Maybe have it go up a little bit more. So you can see right there. There's this little chunk right here. So you can see if you need to get really detailed, you can. You don't have to get super detailed in this use case, because the dragon isn't going to always be behind all of these like sections all at once. So it should be fine. So you can go ahead and click here and just kind of keep adding on. So you can see it just kind of keeps adding on to every time you draw. And then you're going to want to maybe go all the way over here like this. And then, yeah, it likes to add in the trees again. So you can just make sure it's negative over here, and then do a positive. Make sure it doesn't take this chunk right here. So that's pretty good. Let's actually bring this back over here. Okay, that's good for now. And then, like I said, if you need to get super detailed, you want to get up here like that. You can get this little stack right here. Subtract. It's kind of fun. It's kind of like using the pen tool inside of Photoshop. So you can see right here, you can get really detailed. You can go like this. But I think that might actually be good enough, because like I said, you don't have to worry about everything being cut out, just the parts where he's going to be flying behind it. So what you can do now is kind of scrub through the timeline and just go frame by frame. If you see anything that like really jumps out, you're going to want to make sure that you fix it. So that's why I'm scrubbing through to about 7 seconds, and then we should be good. You can see right here, because yeah, before this tool, you would have to manually do this, and this would take like hours to do this. This is such a great tool that they have built in. So once you're good with that, you can hit this button right here. It says freeze. So what that's going to do is just freeze those frames and make it where you can't really make any more edits. That way you don't make any mistakes. And if you need to come in and make any edits to this, you can always go back in here and unfreeze it. So I'm going to let this render out. It might only take a minute, and I'll be right back. So once that's done, you can go up here and close. And then if you need to go ahead and make any edits to that cutout or that mask, you can go ahead and double click on it. And then it says right here, you can unfreeze it to make any more updates. So I just wanted to show that this isn't like a one and done. You can always go and fix things. So now let's go ahead and you can enable that other video that we have below it. And so now let's make sure that the dragon is flying behind it. So what we need to do is move the dragon down below that mask that we just created. So you can see right here, everything is looking pretty good. Okay, so yeah, we see right here, there's one little issue. You can see I needed to actually go down a little bit further. So let's go ahead and actually show you how to do that. So we can go ahead and unfreeze it. So right around this frame, around 5 seconds. So let's go ahead to the 5 second mark and actually recut out everything right here. So if I go like this, it should select most of the castle right down here. So if I start to scrub right here, we're going to want to make sure that we add all of this. Subtract all of that over here. So something along those lines should be good. And so you can see when I scrub, I need to make sure that it's all going to look good right here. So that's what this is right here. You're going to want to make sure that you scrub through, and it's going to add all those keyframes for you. But let's go ahead before that time marker, let's go ahead and actually add this chunk right here, just so it doesn't have any issues. So now if I go here, it added all of that back for some reason. Let's go like this again. So just kind of keep doing this. As you can see, sometimes it will kind of grab more than what you need, but okay, so let's do this. Let's just kind of keep going. So around, what was it, the 5-second mark? So we're at the 5-second mark. So it should be good right now. So now I'm going to go ahead and click freeze again, and let's go back into it, make sure that everything's going to work correctly. So now I went ahead and fixed those frames that were causing some issues. So now you can see when he's flying in, we don't have any of his wing going through, because right around this mark is when you were able to see that it was going right through the castle. So you can zoom in right here and just kind of make sure that when he does kind of go behind these things, that it looks pretty good. It can go, so you can see right here that that mask did pretty good. Yeah, it did a really good job actually. So little things like here, you can see right here, you can, if you wanted to really be pixel perfect, you can go ahead and actually fix that one frame if you wanted, but it's going to be okay just like that. And then for the dragon, if you want to add like a motion blur, you can go ahead and click that button right here. So you can see he's going to have a little bit more of a motion blur when he's animated in. So I think that all looks pretty good. So if I zoom back out, that's going to be the end product right here. So now I can go ahead and actually export this, and let's see how this looks as a MP4 or MOV file. And here we have it. Here's the final rendering after I exported it out as an MP4. So as you can see, he's flying behind the castle, and it looks pretty good. Now, of course, like I said, the major drawbacks with doing something like this is you're not going to have realistic shadows across the trees or anything like that. So this is actually a really good kind of easy way to get 3D objects to go behind objects, animate, do some simple shadows, all without having to go into a 3D program like Blender or Maya or 3D Studio Max or anything like that. This is like a really good, quick way to get this stuff done. So that's it for this tutorial on how I was able to pull this off. Let me know in the comment sections if you want me to make more After Effects tutorials like this. Again, this is Mark from Wiki Design.